So now we're going to do a little more advanced project. It's a little willow and rush tree. And we're going to use willow for the frame that's the sort of stouter pieces. And then we're going to use very fine willow to start with, and then we're going to get it into fatter and fatter willow. And we're going to intersperse it with some rush and possibly some other things that we've found, like the sweet corn husk. Make your kit when the sticks are dry, and then just soak the frames like that instead of the whole stick. Just going to bend it at this point. I usually say to the children a hand span from the butt end. So I'm going to put my thumbs in like this and just ease it. And then very, very slowly, I'm just going to try and make it bend here. Now, with the children, you want them to make it bend with a little kink, but not break. And the way to get them to make it not break is to get them to do it very, very slowly. Incredibly slowly. And they don't need to bring the two sticks together. If you see, it's about 45 degrees. Now the bark will crack because you're asking the stick to do an incredibly sharp bend. And sometimes that does break a bit, and you can get away with that because you're going to wrap willow around it. Then you're going to choose one of your little sticks, and with the tip end, you want to put it under your left thumb like that. So I've got, if you like, short side of the frame and the long bit. I tend to put that into my tummy because it's like having a third hand. It helps me to hold that angle of 45 degrees. Then I take the willow around the top, up through the middle, and I'm going to go over the left arm and back up through the middle, and then over the right arm and back up through the middle. So I'm doing a figure of 8 over the two sides, and I just need to hold that angle for 4 or 5 wraps, and then it will hold itself. And this is really the trickiest bit. If you're doing it with a younger group and less skilled, you might find you have to do this bit for all the children first, in which case you've got a bit of prep at home. But that is how you want the beginning of it. And once you've done one piece of willow, leave the butt end, the fat end sticking out. You can turn it around like that, and it's easier to hold it like that. So then you need a second stick so that it doesn't all ping out. And this time I am going to put the butt in, but it will depend on the fatness of your stick. You could use the tip if the stick's too fat. And I'm going to go round like that, and then there's my old butt, leave that sticking out towards you, and my new butt is sticking out the other side, and I go round like that. And if the children need to pause and they think, well, that's going to unravel, you can always get them to thread that little end through the last row they did, and then just pull it, and then it won't ping out. So that's the beginning of the tree. You've then got a shape. So the short leg, I've cut a point there, can be pretty short, and the long leg needs to be a bit longer. So doesn't need to be too much longer, but a bit. So again, this is an advanced project in that you need these pointy bits at the end, and if you don't want the children to do that with secateurs, you're going to need to cut pointy ends. There's one pocket in the weave, and there's the other one. You see, in that figure of 8? And so I push one stick in one pocket and one stick in the other pocket with a bit of a wiggle. And you don't want the pointy bits sticking out of the weave, so make sure they slide in and sit there without coming out. And if there isn't enough weave, you might have to take them out and do another row of weaving if they keep falling out. And I like to hold it this way. So start with the thin end, and you've got to go in and out all of these spaces now. So at the beginning, it's a small space, so you need a very fine bit of willow. Okay, so stretch it round the frame, bring it back, and push the weave down each time so it looks nice and neat. Down there, up there, round the edge, back again. Keep it all nice and flat like that, and to try and keep these spaces somewhat equal. So the tree trunk wants to sit in the middle of the tree. So there we go, in and out, like that. It's fun for the children to try lots of different things to weave with. Here's a nice bunch of the outer leaves of the corn on the cob husk. And they're very strong. They're a bit short, that's the only downside. But so I've just stamped it with the wet cloth just by rubbing it 4 or 5 times like that. And then I'm going to introduce it here and probably give it a few twists as I go around the frame, and then backwards and forwards. And because they are a bit short, you might end up just having a little band of sweet corn, and sandwich it in between. Do you see? I've sandwiched it here in between a piece of willow and then followed it with some rush. I'll do a few lines of rush. I might not bother with the very fine end because that'll take me ages. I'll just put it in like this, overlap it again, put my finger on it so I can pull it tight, stretch it round, in and out. The children will like making trees on a bigger size where they can do a lot of the rush because it's very easy. It is an ongoing build your skill project, so you can get smaller and finesse it more and more, but anybody who's struggling, try and get them into the rush sooner rather than later, and then they'll love it. The only thing is, to make a really successful tree, you've got to have a good bit of willow at the base. I'm going to finish off the tree by pegging the long piece into the work. So in order to hold the peg in place, I need a fair bit of willow weaving, not rush. The rush is too soft to hold the tension that the peg makes on it. So make sure the children do at least 2, if not 3, sticks of willow weaving at the end. This is probably the trickiest bit of the whole project. I'm going to kink this stick right in here and bring it across here. I'm going to use my nail, but if you couldn't get your fingernail in there or didn't want to, you could put the bodkin there like that and try and bend it over the bodkin. You just want to support the willow with something, because if you just do that with no support, it may crack on you. And then I go over one of the tree trunk sticks, under the other, just so it stays in there, and then very, very precisely I'm going to kink this here, just inside this stick, to make a little peg that's going to go up here. Can you see the peg's going to go, see where my bodkin is? That's where the peg's got to go. And I've got to get this kink at the right place. So I put my finger in there and then bend it very slowly and carefully like that. If I don't put that kink in the right place, this stick shoots over here and you can't get it in there. If I bend it too far back here, then it goes at an angle and it won't go in and hold. So it's highly precise. And if you think that's a bit too much for the children, you can explain that on their first project it might be better if the adult does it for them. I cut a nice pointy bit on there, let the peg be about 1 inch, and then I'm going to push the peg into that bit there and push it down till it sits in really nicely like that. We're going to put the thin end of a small piece of willow up into the bodywork. It doesn't really matter where, just secure the end somewhere like that. And then we're going to go around just these two. So just weave a sort of figure of 8 around these two. Guide the children not to pull them too tight without supporting the sticks, but to stretch the willow so it sits neatly. But if they pull these in, we won't get the final peg in, so leave that sticking out for the moment. So we'll just put a second one in, putting the tip in first, and then just carefully weaving around in a figure of 8, just to give a bit more of a trunk. And then I'm going to perform the same pegging idea. So I put my finger in here at this point, bend it over, and then to the inside of the stick I put my nail or the bodkin and make a little kink so that the peg will go in like that. Can't be longer than the length from the first kink. If the pocket isn't big enough, you'll need to make it bigger by wiggling the bodkin in it like that, and then you make your little peg like that and prise it in. So you push and push until it sits in there like that. So there's the tip of the peg, you see, and that's holding it all in and will stop all the weaving falling off. You can trim everything up with the secateurs. You can take that off with a blunt end like that, and that off with a blunt end like that. And then you can snip that bit off there. Pull the little thin ends before you snip them so that they are tight. And then when there's a tiny bit like that, you see, you have to prise it up with your finger and then remove your hand, trim off carefully. You use the bodkin to make a little hole in the weaving. Just push it through, make sure your hand isn't in the way. You've got about 10 seconds when you take this out, when that hole will still be there. Take the bodkin out and then you can thread this through, and then the willow, being elastic, will just close up again and pinch it, and then you can do a bit of cordage or tie a knot, or this could be a bit of bright red ribbon if it's a Christmas tree or whatever.